Hello everyone, your favorite night owl here. Talk about these two tents and their value to your various preparations for camping, expeditions in the wilderness, and other applications you may have. We have here two tents which have served me quite well over the years. The one in the red bag is a smaller 2 to 3 person tent, as the bag clearly indicates. We have here a larger one which carries about 2-3 times the size of that and is considerably larger. Although they still take up relatively little space whenever I'm traveling, and there are occasions when I carry both, which I'll get to later in the video. Before we get started, like, share, and subscribe. Check out a link below to my Subscribe Star account, which is under DSR of a Rule of N Pack. There's a $2 monthly donation to help a small creator out. Fantastic. Alrighty then. Let's get on with it, shall we? We have here two tents which each have some value to your particular trips you are planning, although for different reasons. Now, I do not have a single person tent here because a 2 to 3 person tent is the smallest I tend to carry on me, as they don't take up very much room, although a single person tent can be compacted even further. Now, I do have reasons for wanting to carry a 2 to 3 person tent, especially when it can fully seal. Those particular reasons include just general storage and other practical matters. A larger tent would allow you to store more of your gear inside a tent, especially if it can seal. Because if you leave your tent out for any extended period while you're wandering off into the wilderness or whatever it is you're doing, if you leave your stuff outside the tent, you potentially risk someone deciding they want to add whatever nice things you have to their collection of nice things. Now, placing things in the tent simply denies other people direct viewership of it, but they could still just go inside the tent. If they have any particular interest in finding out what you have, most tents will offer token resistance in preventing that from happening, which is quite unfortunate. Although an extra layer of security isn't half bad of a decision. Especially there are tents on the markets which are more secure than other ones. Although there are tents that have completely open entrances, and it doesn't really matter, as someone can simply peek in. It does differ from tent to tent. Other practical reasons is the larger tent you carry if you're traveling with people you trust, and they trust you, and once something happens to one of their tents, you have room to spare. That's especially true for carrying this particularly large tent. However, there are other matters to consider, as sometimes, as previously stated, I will carry both. Although this is not all the time. Generally, I'll pick one or the other. If the trip out is a 3-day to a week worth of time, more or less, I generally carry the smaller one for the supplies and other matters. However, if it's, say, a multi-week trip or even longer, this is the one I tend to carry. Although, if it's longer than that, that usually means I'm on a particularly extensive expedition into the wilderness, which does happen time to time. In those cases, I will carry both. Generally, how that goes in my particular group is we'll set up a main campsite with these larger tents in order to keep our supplies and for other purposes. One of the purposes is if you carry one of these larger tents, you can use one simply as a communal meeting place because, well, they're particularly large enough to hold more than a few people, depending on the size. Because you can find tents that can hold up to 20 people, although they tend to be particularly difficult to set up for smaller groups of people. It all depends. Although smaller groups, a tent like this is just fine to that goal. You have your tents that everyone stays in, and then you have one tent for communal meetings or for other makeshift offices, such as a makeshift infirmary, just in case, depending on how long you're planning to stay out. Oh dear, someone's a bit busy outside. I don't know if you can hear that. Alrighty then, moving on. Lost my train of thought there. Oh, train of thought, not train of shot. No pun intended. This particular tent, in those particular circumstances, I will set up a main campsite with the rest of the group with these larger tents, store the main supplies, as well as Well, then packing up with this, which is included, and then going to another secondary site in intervals. We'll set up the main site, head out for 3 days to a week to the secondary site. We'll head back after we've packed up to the main site, and when we're back, the group that had initially stayed to guard the initial campsite will move out to another secondary site. Usually these expeditions are for various reasons. Alrighty then. Of course, it all depends on what you need or want, because you could always just carry 2 of these smaller ones. Although, I do prefer this measure because it also offers additional advantages like being able to offer other people shelter. There are occasional times that we meet up with other groups, and they had someone lose their tent and they need someone to bunk with, and no one in their group's willing to share. Or they just don't have enough room with all their gear and they're looking for someone with a particularly large tent. That does occur, it's fairly rare, and it is largely advisable to only do that in cases with other groups you do trust. Or with someone you know who might be in that group and just came up to you for help. The smaller tent, though, in the case of these secondary campsites with its particular coloration, is not easy to conceal. Now, that's not always important, but if you have the right equipment on you and gear, it's not that hard to modify this tent to make it easier to conceal. So you don't necessarily need to go buy a premium brand, say, camouflaged tent setup. You have options. This particular tent, you can either, when it rains, has a cover for the top, or when it's going to be particularly sunny and you're convinced there's no rain, for additional ventilation, you can take it off. Which you can clearly see in the picture there. Which is absolutely fantastic. Plenty of ventilation is good. In fact, the larger tent also has plenty of ventilation. Getting good ventilation is always a good thing. Although there is their downsides. If you have all your vents open, it's easier for people to see what's in your tent. Alrighty then, there's also other matters that can be taken into effect. However, both these tents have their value. In fact, on a particularly long-range trip, although I've never been on one that long, I've even been informed that taking 2 of these larger ones would be advisable. Although I've never been particularly on a trip that particularly long. Alrighty then, said particular a bit too much. Did it again. We have here the smaller tent, which is fairly light. In fact, this bag, after you remove the tent, is actually use it for storage for other matters. Same thing with the other one, although that's not particularly a part of this video. Alrighty then. Both of these have inherent value to whatever expedition you plan on using them for. With shorter trips, smaller tents would be more advisable. Although longer trips, a larger tent, although there is a matter of space. Sometimes, wherever you're at, you may only have space for these smaller tents. Although, it comes down to whatever route you take and where you ever decide to set up camp. Smaller tents also tend to be easier to conceal if that's a matter of concern for the individual headed out. It's not really a concern for me because, well, I don't have any real reason to conceal while I'm out there. Alrighty then, on to some quick channel news. This video will be uploaded to my BitChute account, which is under DSR Verulven Pack, which is also what my Subscribestar account is under, DSR Verulven Pack, for those of you who are interested in donating. I also have my YouTube account, if interested, which is just DSR. Alrighty then, like, share, and subscribe. Check out the link below to my Subscribestar account, which is, as previously stated, under DSR Verulven Pack. Alrighty then, see everyone around.